Hey everyone, good morning. Hello. I'm trying something new. Please let me know what you hear. I got some music playing there. There's three of you on the big computer and two on the little. Can you guys hear the water flowing in the background? And if so, is it louder than my voice? If you don't mind joining in live chat and let me know, I'd appreciate it. Y'all, how's it going? Okay, classroom set up. Hey, look at this. I wonder if I've never tried it this way. Cool. Drums. This is a really cool static tech tool, not a drum. Actually, I've made more beer in this than you could possibly drink in your life. Paradigm shift. Dum, da, dum. All right, everyone, welcome. We're gonna pick back up where we was before, and we're gonna be talking about males, land race, and things like that. Talking about some of the metaphors we're using, as well as the direct applications of things. Right, here's a paradigm shift I had one day. This bead right here. Right, I thought it was like hippie coral beads when I found them, dug them up off the. So on my 20th birthday, I went backpacking, solo trek, took a bus, took a bus, took a hitchhike, had a wonderful adventure getting up during the March Miracle rains from San Luis Obispo to Monterey and down Big Sur. And I found all these beads on the side of the mountain. And I thought they were hippie beads, and some of them looked like Indian trade beads. And they made necklaces and gave a bunch away to random people who I danced with out when I was in college on these silver, because that's what I did, was made really cool jewelry and didn't have a clue of the value of what I was doing. And literally would just give them to girls at the end of the night and never see them again. Before leaving the bar, type of thing. Whatever. So I went to get some more, and I wanted to find out what they were. And I went to an expert who had a bead shop, and I asked him, "Hey man, what are these hippie beads? Can I get some more of these coral hippie beads?" Right? And I only have a few left. And he looks at him, his eyes got wide, and he says, "Man, just a minute." And he goes and gets books, and he gets charts, and this is before internet, and he goes and he goes scours through his books and charts and graphs and things, and he looks through, and after about 20 minutes, he comes back. He's like, "Man, those aren't hippie beads. Those aren't coral. What are they?" He's like, "Those are glass, and they're really, really old." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he puts them on this chart next to a photograph, and it says Byzantine 3000 BC. Paradigm shift. Right? No, I can't replace those. And people have treasures. They have no clue what they are unless they go through that same process. And so the same kind of thing, when we might look at a land race, we might think that it's just a hippie bead, when it's this treasure, right? And it could be with any seed you've got, right? And someone who calls himself a prominent beader might give me shit for keeping tabs on my type 1, type 2, and type 3 seed, but we all know that they're all breeding was cut onlys that came from type 3 bag seed. Bum, ba, bum, paradigm shift, right? Okay, cool. So are these drums? These are not the drums I bought in Mexico. These replace those ones, and I mistakenly traded off my Mexican drums for a quarter-pounder swag. Cool. Here's some more paradigm shifting real quick. We're talking about using colors. Color for our palette, right? I'm getting light into both cameras here, and so this is my palette, and this is my older one, and it kind of got warped, so it wobbled when I worked, and when I was able to, I replaced it and upgraded myself into a better, more sturdy, solid, thick. See how flat that is. And you can see also I still have paint left on this one because I have another palette now I'm using, and I keep improving myself. But if we take a look here, right? It has the basic colors, and I'm creating everything from this. I can make it look like a photograph, or I can make it look like a full abstract. But what do we have? So I'm gonna bring this up and see if I can't get it close. This is a green. This is a blue and a blue. This is a red and red, right? I have two. What do I got? That's an orange, which is literally these two 50-50, right? I can get that in a tube. That's a cheater, right? It's a hybrid of these two, or pure forms. These are cadmiums, heavy metals, right? And this one here is a pigment. It's more like an ink, okay? And this is a cadmium, and this one's an ink, and this one's an ink. Okay, so I use teeny little itsy bits of those ones, and I use a lot of the cadmiums, all right? And so we have, this is actually kind of a yellow, and this is another cheaper yellow that looks like, we might call it a brown, okay? But these are all just like pure form. None of these are hues. You can buy hues, which are a cheaper paint, but they're like pigments mixed up together already to get you there, right? Clones. You can't, but once you mix those up, they get all muddled. Okay, so what is mud, right? I actually keep mud, and so here's a couple of beautiful darks that I create. And this one here is actually this green and this red ink pigment, okay? And these create this, what we see black, but if you look here, it's actually a green. I can add some yellow to and the green really pops or whatnot, but I get a lot of greens out of that dark too. This here is a beautiful dark and purple, right? Which is ultramarine and cad, or I'm sorry, ultralian, and that's the pigment, right? So it's a mix of the two. So I'm mixing the rare earths and the pigments. They're just a chemical formulation, but they're pure form. They're not a blend, right? But then right in here, also have burnt sienna and ultramarine, and those two kind of mix together and create these incredible blue. You can't really super control it, but you can understand what's going on, right? So we have colors and base palette, but it's not just one blue, one red, right? You see, you have two of each. You have a warm and a cool, creating blues, and up here are these grays, and these are some muds that I collect, right? And I don't know if I have them on this palette. Let's see. Yeah, here. I wasn't using quite as much to start with. I started adding different cheats, or it's all the same stuff, but so this is much more limited, right? I just had the 6, green, blue, red, yellow. But over in here, I would collect all the leftover, and up in here, I would collect all the leftover, mix it together, and I would take that mud, those super polyhybrids that are so mixed up, you can't, everything just tastes the same. Right, we end up getting flavors or whatever, and I would take those and I could mix back my primary colors into the mud to bring them out and make them pop. And with that, you can control various aspects of depth, of field, and your perception and aerial perception and things like that. Okay, totally different science and art. Right, we can compare these things and really understand. You can take that mud that I talked about, where you just keep polyhybridizing. In polyhybridizing, which has happened, and we have these cut onlys that are super plastic and they don't really taste like a whole lot of anything different. And you go ahead and you can take these base land races we're talking about and mix them back in to get the pure forms that you really want, or accentuate that, right? You can leave some of that mud that has its own beauty, right? You can also leave things. So I'm going to show you a couple different paintings real quick and see if this works. This here's a live figure study. Right, I just knock this out, and I think it was like a 45 minutes from a live model and what we call a north light. Okay, and so this is literally the ultramarine and burnt sienna, and that's it, and a little bit of mud to create that gray green. So this is literally just two colors creating what would anyone would consider to be a work of art, and then we can get a hell of a lot more complex. And this is an award-winning piece that another great artist gave awards to, props, and it's extremely complex. And I am actually using a lot of that mud in this one, right? A lot of those subtle grays, and I'm trying to just change the light so it doesn't have glare on either camera while I point this out. But up in this zone here, in the mountain zone, right? Lots and lots of mud in the sky. Down in here, I have lots of mud that I'm utilizing to create this work of art. So all of this stuff has its position and place in what we're doing. Here I actually have gold leaf on the painting, right? So, and it's all valid, all the way between the 45-minute sketch and the studio art, right? And it's all, and that's just like ways we can translate and look at different aspects of what we're doing with all this green. So last week, leg up, there's one. There's the other leg up. Let's see. I think the live chat is showing up now on the replays, and I was looking through a couple of questions I missed. I'm gonna head up on those. One when we were talking about we were talking about male selection, so I want to go back and talk about that and stressing males and things like that. I kind of skipped over that. The other was a simple misconception. I said 70 tons. My buddy's 20 acre site, and it literally wasn't even 20. It was all greenhouses, right? So now fathom that you've got a 30-foot canopy, and you can have multiple crops in a year. And but if it was literally the math done right in orders of operations, this is how people think there's a flat Earth, because they don't understand the order of their operations and they get the math all messed up really easily. But it's literally 2.5 ounces per square foot on 20 acres to get 70 tons. Okay, and so if I was wrong at all, it was 70,000 pounds and 35 tons. But I'm pretty sure it was 70, and it's just hard with OGs and not so hard with production stuff. So let's see. What's another? I was trying to think. There were some other questions in there, and maybe I'll come up as I go. But definitely. So the male selections, right? Let's just go right back to that and start up again as soon as we burn the mule fat again, because we want to just get rid of any evil spirits and bad ghosts. It got really cold here. I've been doing some. I'm always learning, right? One of the things I've been doing for 30 years now is making hash in different forms. I did first closed loops in like 92 or 93 for medicine uses, and my thoughts come clearly to you. My mentor taught me what he learned in the street markets of Morocco, and I had that pretty well refined. And I learned a whole bunch when I started teaching, and I'm finally getting to where I've got ice water bubble as good as my dry sift for the first time ever, and a lot of work getting there, a lot of material washing through, and the chirpiest cultivar of this year chat, and literally it was probably, I have no idea because I don't really follow I have no idea what happened at the Emerald Ball. Paradigm shift. Yeah, I'm not in that world. That's literally like I see what I see because I see it, and that's it. And I've been kicked off of Instagram again, so I don't even see it right now. Male selection. So we were talking about Shilabwati, a stretchy sativa that was selected from wild for me to breed with and refine, and that and any other male. So somebody asked about the timing selection, right? And paying attention to things about which one flowers when in sequence. And so that's one of the things we do as breeders when you're really paying attention to stuff is which of your offspring starts flowering first, how many hours of light, if you have that opportunity, and how long the flowering cycle runs for. Okay, if it runs long, super long durations, if it runs and runs and runs and runs, it keeps on flowering, right? If it's the last one to flower, if it's the middle flowering and initiation, and you got to look at like the pods forming, and you got to look at the pollen dropping. And these are all aspects that you got to look at in your male selections, really. Okay, you can hardly hear over the water. Thank you. That's what I needed to know. Let me see if I can adjust that. We should still be there in the background. And thanks for stopping in, Donkey Kongaton, and check it out later. And I expect these to be watched later and not live. It's early morning, so it is. I just chose a spot and time and went with it. So here we are to the. Can you guys still hear it even? Yeah, so over on the laptop, it doesn't even come across. So anyhow, I want you guys to hear me, not the background sound so much. So selection of males. So you got a bunch of males growing. Say, you really want to have 20 seeds of something, a minimum, if you can get them. Sometimes you only get a couple, and that's the way it is. Sometimes you've got way too many and you can't grow them all, right? And that's the way I want it. Thanks, loyalty. And I wish I could get it to come through on there too, but I'm having a lot of problems learning old man new tricks, getting this. But the biggest problem I have is my upload speeds, and some of you probably told me about just suck. I have a 2 megabyte per second upload speed, so I'm gonna be live streaming until I can get some way to upload live or edited film for teaching. Fine. So Soil-Borne Addictions over here says on this note, I'm currently dropping light schedule by half an hour a week, trying to find that trigger point on the plants I'm currently holding. Okay, so paying attention to that, it takes 2 weeks of, right? Even if you go slam hard 12 and 12s, right? It's a 2 weeks basically, right? All right. Well, we'll half it again back to where it was, and with the water dial, because there. All right. Cool. Yeah. So you can have a 2 week response on things when they're in a certain time period, right? So that can be. You got to remember when you're changing it every week, it's going to be triggering, but that's following natural, right? And literally, that's what you're going to find, right? And if you can do that, and so. We want to find those different points in the male where the pollen's dropping, which one forms the flower first, which one finishes flowering first, which one's okay. So in initial stages of selection of males, according to those parameters alone, okay, looking at that male production of sexual organ and sexual viability. Is standard practice, and modern laboratory science will confirm or call it a myth. But the way we've done this, and my understanding and my observation of other people's work to do it differently, makes it valid. You want to X-nay or Ut-nay, stay away from those first ones that drop their hay. Okay, yeah. So to start with, all right. And to be on the safer side, you want to look at some of those later starters even and getting that. But what that happens with then is in your F2 selection or your second round, you're going to have a longer set of females as well, right? So you can use some other tricks to find. But what we're doing there by excluding those first ones is we're getting away from the more unstable males that may be carrying the heavier intersex traits. Right. And so we were talking about in the last show that we might not have the ability to test in a laboratory for our intersex traits. And we want to exclude those if we can, because it reduces trichoma production when we're putting energy into producing seed. And if unless you're growing seed for food, right, that's which paradigm are you on? Okay. So the I should have flaming vessels on these, right? Oh, they do, don't they? All right. So in selecting those males and excluding anything that might have and like you can have issues with polyhybrid is receded into or having intersex issues in polyhybrids, right? Receded into those things, and whenever you cross a new set of polyhybrids, those intersex issues can come back out, right? Or like we said, a lot of the stuff is actually type 3 seed, unknown parent bag seed, and was possibly came from a hermaphrodite to begin with and carries those traits onward. Okay, so there is Mr. McCoff. So are you talking to me about the landrace group? That doesn't exist anymore. There is, I think there's Landrace Preservation Society is still on Facebook. It's a kind of slow, active group of people, but you can jump on there and through. I'm not on Facebook hardly at all anymore. I don't have time for it. Um, so male selection, yeah. So other ways of finding stress testing and excluding intersex with males, and this can go at any stage, is throwing them in a small, taking a clone or whatever and putting them in a small container and letting them root bind and veg. And a lot of times unstable males will go ahead right into flower there, right? So, and with that in mind, something I need to emphasize on stressing your plants is that whatever stage of breeding you're at, you need to keep in mind we can stress every female into intersex at some point with some level of stress, okay? And so you can't just exclude everything based on the fact that you stressed it and caused it, because I'm going to teach you some crazy stress techniques that can make things, it's like, what is this guy do, right? But that's literally how I identify, and it can be relative at times because you only have so much germplasm to work with. If you exclude the entire gene pool because it responded to a heavy stress, well, how many people are going to be putting it through these heavy stresses? It's like it might happen by accident, and you want to be like, okay, you know that it may or may not be stable, to be able to tell people what's going to go on with these plants, right? Okay, so that root bond stress is one you can do to really look at it. You can do, again, the light reversal thing that I do, where I flip it. Other stressing, and I do this for males and females, is I starve the crap out of them and see what they still can produce, right? My philosophy is if it can produce without food, it's going to do a lot better in a perfect horticultural infrastructure. Okay. pH swings, right? Overfeeding. I've talked about temperature extremities. Okay. Growing them under light bulbs that they're way old. Okay. All these things will bring out issues that may encounter by rookie growers, right? Dumping cold water on the roots isn't really one I do myself. I've heard people say, like, oh, the guys in Alaska got cold water. It's like, well, my water gets cold in the winter. It just does. It's like 45 degrees or something coming out of the ground. And I've never seen any responses to that. 48 hours at the beginning of dark in stretch from Nug Champa on chat here. That's one I have found that I picked up from Michael Wolf Seal, the guy who has coined the term the Sea of Green, who's the lighting expert. And that's my, if you got to go to for lighting, ask that guy. So yeah, I like that one to keep stretch down, right? I do not find stressing it at the end of your light cycle to do anything but cause it to go into a cannibalistic stage, right? And so depending on how much you've food stressed it towards the end and deprived of nitrogen, for instance, right? In hydroponic systems, we do a really good job of leaching out all the nitrogen and starving it through the plant cycle. And that's one reason why through stress you can get a huge amount more trichoma in those systems more than anything, is that you've stressed it out on that nitrogen, and it starts. Yeah, it's really hard to achieve in soil systems, even with defoliation and such, unless you combine the two, hybridized soil and hydroponics, and that's a whole nother advanced. Yeah, you can flip them for sexing plants a little bit if you're not seeing your that definitely is not a problem. You can do that. You can do that for sure. The water sound is something I'm trying to put together for someone asking in chat over here. I'm putting together a channel, or working towards teaching myself all the ins and outs, the intricacies of internet technology to And I have a couple of weak points in the chain that I can't get past. Anyhow, this is going to be the type of stuff I'm creating where I go out in nature with my GoPro and create little bits of nature to just put in the background with a little video that repeats. And so this is literally like a 3 or 7 minute clip that I replay turned into a 3-hour video for meditation. And I just kind of got it playing in the background. And but the channel isn't really even there yet because it's all in my conception. I've started and done some tests, and it's just like anything else we do. Like a lot of you are first time breeders trying to learn how to do this. And you know, when I was young and trying to learn, we literally had every 2 months we could get a High Times magazine and ask Ed with a few questions. All right. Yeah. Templeon's over here and add some fractal loops, and I'm gonna get there. I'm learning all that stuff, and sweet, I got loyalty in both. Appreciate you, man. That's what loyalty is all about, right? Good morning, Sam. Let's see. So male stress testing. What I'll do on males is I'll break the main stem, bend it all over and see how it responds, how it grows back and stuff. Here's something a lot of people don't ever think about in what we do. Let's see. He's really beautiful in that screen. Who knows what that is? All right. So when I was 15 years old, living at my grandmother's house, going to private school in Los Angeles, and I couldn't wear the wrong colored shirt. I had to wear a white T-shirt and then put on my shirt when I got to school. But like if I had the wrong color plaid on, you could get shot because of gang warfare, right? And you couldn't wear a red or a blue bandana, whatnot. And I literally was going from the town just east of East LA called Montebello. Right. And I was hopping on the buses and I was going through this tell zone, gang warfare, crack cocaine, and you know, there's tons and tons and tons of good people lived there, but the gang warfare made it kind of like it was literally a war zone. There was more people killed in collateral damage in these wars in the time period I was going to high school than in combined Israeli and Irish conflicts in the late 80s. Okay. So they used the buildings that I went to school with, and were sniper positions for police during shootouts with rival gangs fighting over dealing streets and stuff that butted up to the school. It was like a fortress. I had to lay in a ditch one time when they had a shootout during we had freshman football practice, and we were a half hour in a ditch next to a 3-foot thick footer for a 12-foot brick wall. Right. So, but living at grandmother's house, and I'd heard about the emperor's new clothes at 15 years old. And I asked grandmother, I said, Grandma, did grandpa grow hemp on the farm in North Dakota? And she got a twinkle in her eye, and she used to catch us. So we'd be in the closet looking at her bag. Boys, what's that sweet smell? And, we would, well, she got that twinkle in her eye, and she went back into her hope chest, the cedar chest, and she dug out this brown wax paper parafletch string tied on it. She opens it up and unfolds it and unfolds this beautiful hemp silk vest that was, it looked like it was brand new. It was white and it was soft as silk. And it was thick, though, thicker than this material here, is hand spun from South America, right? And she says this is from the old country, right? And so we have Belarus. It was Austrian people living in Belarus and White Russia, working for the White Army as militants, and ran off. And actually, my great-great-grandfather was killed by Bolsheviks in North Dakota. Was murdered there, and that's where my family established. Right, Alsace, if you understand the genetics of human beings, is what they call this group of people who moved over into North Dakota with this German and White Russian blood heritage. So from the old country, my family was hemp farmers, right? And this was amazing hand spun hemp silk, and it had embroidered edges. It was maybe, I don't know, something, but it was like it was done yesterday. But the stuff was over 100 years old, right? They came over when the Red Army overran the Tsar, right? And so that's where Harti comes from, Harti, and that's why I do all of this, not just weed, but hemp fibers, right? And so some of the things we're looking for is how fibers, what kind of fiber is this going to provide for us for somebody who's going to maybe do a home farm and wants to utilize fibers for whatever purpose this actually comes from hybridized sativa and indica with the sativa leaning, but this is a drug type medium width leaf. This is not a non-drug type. This is some amazing good fiber coming off of. You can select for these kinds of things as well. Okay, so and I want to say this is like polyhybrid. This is my Breath of Green Dragon, right? Which is on Adure, northern Afghanistan. I got a male out of a pack from. So, one I'm going to talk about all the different places you can get seeds from, but I want to say was it World of Seeds? Was that came from? And so they registered that one up at 22% was the average that you get from the land race from northern Afghanistan, right? So land races really can be some, right? So if we look at the actual science and we watch some of the other shows on the channels, we'll know that like people claiming 32%, 42%, it's really questionable as to if that's really what they're hitting. 30's kind of pushing the top ends, but 20 to 24% with the proper terpenes is just this like gonna slay it if you really understand. So stress males by putting in police shootouts. No. Just talking about some history and things that where I got to now. I was eating acid every Friday, going in through all that craziness, right? Think about a whole different worldview and like, we're talking about waste riots these days, but we had them back then too, and we had them before when I was a little baby. Right? It hasn't changed. We still got that shit going on, but if we all just realize where our weed comes from, and all around the world with people of every color. Okay, so we're looking for stress in males, and they might have fibers where that was all going to, and Harti, and where my name's derived. Just a little bit of knowledge halfway through the show. So we can look at how they respond when you bend them and stuff like that. If you want fiber, if you don't want fiber, right? Some people want to add into a dense plant, for instance, that you have issues with because it has a little too much of. Last show I was talking about indica has propensity to bud rot because it's not stressed against that in its natural environment. And it also, it's more northern dry latitudes and higher elevation type stuff. And so those things that we traditionally refer to as indica, which I'll build a chart out here as soon as I figure out another streaming service and I can put pictures up. Right, we got short stocky stuff. We got the long elongated, right? Indica sativa. And so sometimes I was describing how I crossed the Pakistani Chitral Kush, which isn't truly a indica because it has some of the narrowest leaves you'll ever find, and it can have some lanky, stretched out, fibrous plants as well, right? It's something that got hybridized and brought back into the foothills with the Hindu Kush genetics coming down, okay, and became what it is. But it's got that narcotic, just like whoa, to it as well. For the most part, I don't know of any really super uppity, racy types. Okay. We've got joking in the chat over here. So yeah, so how I cross that Shilawathi with the Pakistani Chichal Kush to stretch out that PCK, which if you leave it as a single cola, it's going to have a short, stocky plant with just a massive cola for the most part on the more desirable genetics that we find in the green strains, and the purples will do it, but smaller it tends to be. And so if you want to elongate this whole thing, and then you've got a sativa-based genetic that tends to have like way stretched out with, for instance, open flowers that you want to densify down for multiple reasons, right? But you don't want to make them so dense that they're going to become bud rot issues, right? But just longevity of a plant, right? It sticks around a lot longer as a viable consumable if it's not foxtails, and that's one of the biggest issues with foxtails, if there is any. And so when you combine those two base genetics, and you can come up with a very beautiful, just two-color painting, right? And you can select on that bell-shaped curve, right? The most of them are going to be like a 50-50 the two, and you can have some of them more propensity towards one the other. And the most basic. You can do that, the same kind of thing, but it's going to lean towards the dominant male and female and polyhybrids to base genetics that are inbred from landrace or otherwise. Right. And so in selecting those males, you can pinch your stem and decide how much fiber you want or not want. You can find hollowness of the more indica stems, right? And various conditions we've learned. Mr. Toad's put all sorts of science up on his Instagram that shows different causes of why there's a hollow stem, right? And chemical imbalances and stuff, and things that say it's growing fast, and it's like chemical imbalance or at least limiting factor from things growing fast, right? Okay, when things are busting bark and they're really growing fast, they're going to run out of something somewhere. Okay, so things like that Anadore Anadore Valley Afghan Kush. It had very certain traits. It was a male that had frost on the male flowers, okay, and nice dense skinny cola, right? So it transferred that. It carried over high trichoma. It carried over that smaller, though sometimes would shrink the bud. Okay, so it's best if you can, and I didn't get a keeper female out of that. It's best if you can cross in both directions and see which one dominates over the other, right? And so in long-term breeding, if you've got a male that's been around for a while, you're able to observe what a particular male does after you selected it. And that's actually, so when we get into how do we select a male, is you literally select several and cross them in to other females and run the offspring and observe. Okay, so it's a process to really, really, really get to understand. And so you start by kind of guessing, and you can use whatever tools you've got, whether it comes to your stem rubs, right? We're smelling the base, and the base is going to smell differently, and the smell through time of growth changes. Okay, and upper stem rubs are going to smell a lot differently, and sometimes the stem rub smell kind of dissipates away when we get into flowering. Okay, and throughout flower, the entire smell of the plant's going to change. The smell of the pollen, all those things you can be looking at as you're selecting these things. If you're looking for inbred selection, okay, if you're not looking so much for inbred selection, but you're looking for preservation, you're going to be doing a lot less of this. Okay. I forgot about the title, right? Live music is better. Bumper stickers shall be issued, right? We want to get Neil's permission back here. He sold his entire music library off for however hundreds of millions of dollars. Homegrown's all right with me. Homegrown is the way it should be. Homegrown, it's a good thing. Plant that bell and let it ring. Right? So that'd be really cool to have that for the background, right? Homegrown, it's a good thing. Plant that bell and let it ring. So yeah, sun comes up in the morning, sun that shine around. I'm so dyslexic, I can't remember. I keep it straight. Male selection is where it's at. So you do this at home, you do this on a big scale. We're all just kind of closet checkers doing this anything less than on the thousands with science behind it. It is what it is. We're getting some progress done in mass, right? And so here it's going to keep going that way. And even when the universities jump on board, they're going to be producing the same thing like the cardboard tomato. And so we want to do it at home. What kind of instruments do I have within reach right now? We get this isn't even meditation space. This is just kind of like where the computers are. I don't know if I got that stone set. Teaching my daughter how to play. Right? So imagine a little bit of that out in the woods with that water trickling by, right? Whole another art form. This is pipestone, right? I did not carve the pipestone, but I am carving pipestone right now. It's a slow process. Eventually, you're going to be seeing me offerings. I'm not going to do it one at a time. I want to get a small collection together before I put up a group of pipestone pipes for folks. But I'm working on making chillums and a traditional chillum. Right here, this is a traditional utility chillum from India, and I was given 2 of these by a cancer patient who was sent them by somebody in India who sent a bunch of Indian hemp seed that I haven't had a chance to grow out yet and test. But I have a jar full of it for it's a field project at some point. But like they're not very big, and this is the everyday user, right? And you see people using all those big giant chillums. And those are like ceremonial and hardly ever get used, right? And so folks are asking me to carve them these big 6, 7, 8 inch stone pipes, and each inch like doubles the work for me, and the price gets a lot spendier because it's literally this is clay. This is spun in seconds on a little wheel, Yeah. So pipestone, I had my sacred pipestone was taken at a party last summer, and I went and found my last piece. I had buried and to bury it to hold the moisture in to keep it a little softer. And when it's a lot easier to carve when it's soft, and your hands. Oh, it stinks like a fucking dead skunk. Oh man, still there. Dr. Dream All Cure. Looks like shit. Sure doesn't work like it. Yeah, it fogs the brain sometimes. Selection of males. Dr. Dream was actually hermaphroditic reversal and accident, and just happened to be the last of all the fucking shit I had after the police kept pressuring me and everything got shut down for various reasons. And I went through and found what seeds I have, but I know exactly what it was. And so again, I'm all this breeding I've been doing and all the more learning I've been doing, be able to pass this on to you all comes through me trying to get that plant stabilized and back into where y'all can grow from seed, right? And breeding through again all of these, getting the access to all of these, and it's stuff I've been passionate about for so long, and I've been doing in the background on the side just with what I could get access to. And I know that's how it is for a lot of folks. I made some soapstone clay, different clays smoke well. Yeah, they're somewhat absorbent. The wood is cedar on the flute, on the spirit. Yes, that is a certain kind of wood, actually. And so some of that, sorry, there's questions coming up in chat there. You can see it's split cedar, and traditionally these would have been wrapped with like a raw sinew, right? And so it used to have a rawhide and it died off. And I've just got some floss. I have some deer hide I need to cut anew. And you've got to just hold. There's a square hole in there, and I'll move the flute so you can see the stone, and you can see this, right? And so this is called a spirit. And I used to play silver flute a little bit, all self-taught, and had some pretty amazing moments when I've had like Native American families come up and have dad tell the kids to listen while it's playing over a river in Yosemite. And it's just that, it's like, I can put this all for the whole world to hear this stuff now. Crazy. One of my first shamanistic experiences literally is in the high country of Yosemite, where I was learning from Native Americans and went into a sweat lodge. My mother's dark Irish, and everyone mistakes her for being Native wherever she goes. And she was invited to go to a sweat lodge march, and I went into the sweat lodge, and all this is as spiritual as we got as far as chemistry went, but we all experienced literally the spirits of slain warriors from 1886 Mariposa War. Brigade went up and slaughtered the Awanichi people. And I had more spirituality in 4 hours in that sweat lodge than I had in 4 years ago on a Jesuit school, where I almost became a Jesuit priest, right? And a whole lot of other crazy. One of these days I'll tell you stories about what happened in the Grand Canyon and things with edibles I was making in the early 90s. And I'm trying to keep it developing ways without a laboratory, just using scientific method and the way old herbalists work. And I had a lady I worked for. She taught me how to treat herbs properly. She had a section. We built a mansion for them on the ranch I managed, and took care of their 11-acre property and forested land and erosion control. And we had orchards in there. I planted thousands of plants on their property, and we grew in the woods, guerrilla style. And the man of the house, he told me stories back in the day in the mid 80s when he was using a light in a greenhouse in a room with rotators, right? And I keep learning and I keep wanting to teach. I'm going to teach y'all how I'm getting hash a lot easier. And that's a process. These people who are mastering it are true artists, right? And they're focused on that aspect of what they're doing. And so yeah, testing males out and seeing what they all do and how it comes back. And like, I'm trying to push Dr. Dream. It stretched out when it got crossed up with the San Fernando Valley, right? And it had been a short, stocky, dense cola that I could do 4 to 6 colas on each plant, and they would be each one would be a 1/4 ounce to an ounce on a cola, right? Depending on how intensively I fed it, how much, doing different size pots, starting out with 4 inches with 4 inches of rock wool and moving it out to a half inch of, inch and a half rock wools and 4 inches of soil, and then having the rodent, right? And going through hundreds and hundreds of cycles, processing and learning how all this shit works. Once I moved to Utah, I had to go back to Cali to get anything at all, right? Took the bag seed from my brother and started onward and upward. Eventually got a cut of that. Boom, ran into my mentor. Boom. Got approached by somebody who traveled all of California and found San Fernando Valley and went directly to the San Fernando Valley dispensary and got the cut directly there and brought it to me. The other was Blueberry OG from the same dispensary, I believe, same time period, and that would have been 08. And that crossed up with my long lineage of land races, right? And that's where when I'm talking about, man, the shit has hit me like a skunk. It literally, riding up the ski lifts, you can have it. It stinks like be a little bit $0.25 in the pocket, and the lady on the far side of the chairlift in the storm would be asking about snow skunks. Okay, the smells exist. It's not skunk at all. I'm not related to a skunk at all. This is like that San Fernando Valley, but before that, the Hindu Kush baseline was just severely skunky. So you can find those things out in nature. They're there. There's right now I'm working Hindu Kushes and selecting males by all these parameters we're talking about. Okay, so I'll get back to that in a second here. I've separated out, like I've got piney, I've got a skunky, and then there's this one. The Hindu Kush also has this very distinct overall bearing smell that it can have, and I think it's that Mycene dominance, and so I'm getting those kind of separated out. I already made the male seed, the male chucks. I did open pollination, and I did a branch each of 1-to-1s, male to male, and I did a second run. I went through actually on this one. I did two runs of selection. All the generations of Hindu I've got, and I took basically all the seed I had in the house of that, and so I think we went through a little over 300 this time, and then I'm going to offer some feminized reversals of some of these as well. Big process, right? So I said before though how we select in those time periods, right? And we look at those time periods of males and how they flow through. Before I sidetrack on the fiber, etc. Bud stretch, bud compaction, all that stuff can be observed in your males as well, right? They go through phases as they expand and go out, and they go into a full stretch. And do they full stretch early? Do they full stretch later? All of that stuff goes into our observation. And so naturally, they're going to go up above the females earlier and disperse their pollen out, right? And so that time selection is going to dictate your time of finished flowering on your next generation of seed. And so you can observe this if you select the earliest one, and you select the middle one, and you select the late one, and you cross them all, and you tag them to a single female, and you hit a single branch off each one, right? So that kind of then in the second generation and third generation, you want to start moving towards those middle ones instead of the later ones, because that'll bring your full plant growth period back. And you know everyone's aiming for that 60-day cycle, but we're not really doing that so much anymore. We're looking for different qualities. But if that is your objective, that's how you do it. Is you first exclude your first round or two of the first generation, because those are propensity toward the intersex issues. You can check the other stress tests to find those intersex issues in offspring, and or utilize that process. It's been proven true over time. So, gosh, the hour goes fast sometimes when you're telling stories, right? Bum, bum, bum. I think I got the point through on the males there, though, right? It's basically you can do all these things to guess, and then you observe later, right? And like I'll knock them up into several males into several females and do a branch each, right? Using a pollen bag and an injector. At this point is what I'm doing in my process. And I used to have other processes where I pressurize and vacuum different sections of the house. So I had airflow control and would dust onto a single branch at a time, and then the air would exhaust out through a moist screen and blow away. So someone's asking here, is there Native American land race? And if anybody's got any evidence of anything pre-Columbian in the United States being grown, I'd like to see it. There's definitely, I think there's a couple of people who've pointed to some evidence of some older residues, but we also know that there's cocaine found in mummies, right? And so there's intercontinental trade that has occurred, all right? And as far as I know, I am actually in possession of the earliest for North American land race, which would have possibly come through with the Spaniards when they populated Mexico in the 1500s. Okay, and so that was in the same family since before 1700 when it was granted by the King of Spain, and not eradicated by the current Don at the time of Nixon, who mandated eradication. And so I've named it the inbred line that I'm creating of that is Garcia Fernando, for the man himself who did not destroy it. I got it from his grandson. Okay. And that was just recently. So, so it's also, you'll see it labeled coming from me as New Mexico Land Race and New Mexico 1700 Old Spanish Land Grant. Old Spanish Land Grant, 1700 Land Grant, but that's New Mexico Land Grant. NMLG is my standard abbreviation that I utilize. And it works. I like it. It's in a good uppity, heavily. As I inbreed though, I talk about people, and I tell how when you choose against, I'm selected against intersex issues that comes from being wild. And I talk about this in the previous episode. I'll tell whole stories about it later. There is, I currently only have feminized in the second round available, and I'll be trying to get some of that to, or we'll be sending that to Daga soon. But I'm trying to get rid of the intersex issues. But as I do that and select for, there are certain tones of that odor that tend towards skunk that are just leaning into gas instead. And it's kind of interesting about how, I don't talk about the Scythians so much because I don't know a whole lot about the Scythians coming out of chat right there. But yeah, they used a brazier, from what I understand, where you would put a coal in a bowl with some hash or plant material and let that burn out, right? And so it would be kind of the same concept as is using a shell, right? So they weren't necessarily you'd be in a room hotboxing, and it's similar. There's all sorts of old temples that have that kind of stuff in them for a long time. But best test for the male is his offspring. Excellent clothes. Yeah, this is the truth. Blasted Puffin, how dare you? Templanas and Loyalty, all checking in on my home channel. You guys, you should check out my personal channel here. I simulcast these at the same time, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that's not Future Cannabis Project related that I do on my home channel as well. And I touch on all sorts of other concepts. We're coming up into solstice. There's occult teachings and stuff, understanding our place in the universe and what is the universe and things like that. What's your best guess on how it ended up in Spain? No, not Spain. Spain. So there's been cannabis in Spain for 1,000 years or more, right? And so the Spaniards would have brought it over, and it would have been like the brown robes, homespun fiber. The priests used it. It was food. It was medicine. That was just all. There's different times when its use was suppressed, like I believe the when like Catholicism took over Spain again from the Muslims, right? They totally suppressed it because the Muslims used it instead of drinking wine. So longest flower time in landrace I've grown personally is a 120-day flowering cycle, right? And that was stuff I didn't get to today because I went on tangents of talking about mud and back crossing and stuff. But we'll get into strategies for growing those long cycles. I think I've touched on it lightly, but there's all sorts of different ways we can do that kind of stuff. Coming on up into, let's see, I'm going to shout on this: Red Primo, Nug Champa, TDT Records, Travis O'Connor, Squishy Mirror, and throw Sensimia, Bjorn Burnson. Loyalty's in the house over here again, and special to that patio crying out ism. How dare you? What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us today, and we're coming into the end of the show. Appreciate you following up. Next Wednesday morning, be back with you, and we'll be back on Days Getting Longer. Appreciate you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and chill them up. You know, if you can't barehand it, it's probably a little excessive, right? Those big ones hurt your hand. I think I got a link on here, but it's Six Figure Ski Bum. You can find me there. Appreciate y'all. And if you're watching over there, you can find all sorts of awesome stuff over on the Future Cannabis channel too. Bingo. We're out for now. 9 o'clock. Da-da-da. Hit the button. Hit the button. Hit the button. Hit the button.